Have you ever wondered about the mysterious figure of Lot in the Bible and why he's such a big deal? Well, get ready because we're about to unravel the fascinating story behind this intriguing character. Lot's tale isn't just any ordinary story. It's packed with drama, morality, and divine intervention. From his ties to the doomed city of Sodom to his familial relationship with the legendary Abraham, Lot's journey is one you won't want to miss. So let's dive into this video today to uncover all the secrets about who Lot really was and why his story matters to us. Here we begin. The name Lot has an uncertain origin and meaning, but some experts think it might suggest a covering like a veil. The Bible mentions that after Lot's father died, he left the city of Ur of the Chaldeans. He traveled towards the city of Heron with his grandfather Tura, Uncle Abram, and Sarai. According to the Hebrew Bible, Lot was the son of Heron who died while they were living in Ur of the Chaldeans. Lot's grandfather, Tura, along with his nephew Abram, later called Abraham, Lot and Sarai, later called Sarah, journeyed to Canaan. They settled temporarily in a place called Heron, where Tura passed away. As part of God's covenant with Abram, he was instructed to leave his homeland and relatives. Lot accompanied Abram on this journey, and they eventually arrived in the land of Canaan, settling in the hills near Bethel. Due to a severe famine, Abram and Lot traveled to Egypt. In a bid to protect himself, Abram claimed that Sarai was his sister rather than his wife. Hearing of Sarai's beauty, the Pharaoh took her into his household, which led to divine punishment in the form of plagues. When confronted by the Pharaoh, Abram revealed the truth about Sarai's relationship, and they were expelled from Egypt as a result, the plain of Jordan. Later, when Abram left Heron, Lot followed him towards Canaan. Due to a great famine in Canaan, Lot went down to Egypt with Abram. However, after Pharaoh realized Abram and Sarai deceived him, they were expelled, and Lot returned with Abram to Canaan. During this time, Abram and Lot both prospered. As a result, Lot and Abram became very prosperous, and the place they lived in couldn't handle both of them together. This led to disagreements between Lot's shepherds and Abram's shepherds, so Abram and Lot decided to go separate ways. Abram generously let Lot choose the land he wanted to settle in during their separation. It was basically them returning to the hills of Bethel with their extensive livestock. Abram and Lot's herdsmen began to quarrel over grazing land. So to resolve the conflict, Abram proposed that they separate and let Lot choose where he wanted to settle. Lot, noticing that the plains of the Jordan were lush and well-watered, reminiscent of the gardens of the Lord and the land of Egypt, opted to settle among the cities of the plain, eventually reaching Sodom. But at last, Abram chose to dwell in Hebron, remaining in the land of Canaan. After parting with Abram, Lot went to Sodom and quickly got involved in the city's affairs. It seems that Lot held a significant social position in Sodom because when the angels of the Lord visited the city, Lot was found sitting at the city gate. In ancient times, respected members of a city gathered at the gate to handle legal matters. Unfortunately, the people of Sodom were extremely wicked. At that time, the 5 kingdoms of the plain were vassal states of an alliance led by Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, along with 4 other eastern kingdoms. After serving Chedorlaomer for 12 years, the kings rebelled in the 13th year. In response, Chedorlaomer's forces returned, defeating the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah at the Battle of Sodom. Chedorlaomer plundered the cities and took captives, including Lot, who was residing in Sodom. Upon learning of Lot's capture, Abram rallied a force of 318 trained men and pursued Chedorlaomer's armies. Abram's pursuit led him to Dan, where he divided his forces and continued the pursuit to Hobah. Ultimately, Abram successfully rescued Lot and his people and possessions from captivity. Lot chose the green plains of the Jordan, near the Dead Sea, close to Sodom. After parting with Abram, Lot went to Sodom and quickly got involved in the city's affairs. It seems that Lot held a significant social position in Sodom because when the angels of the Lord visited the city, Lot was found sitting at the city gate. In ancient times, Respected members of a city gathered at the gate to handle legal matters. Sodom. Later, after God had changed Abram's name to Abraham and Sarai's name to Sarah as part of the covenant of the pieces, God and two angels appeared to Abraham in the form of three men. God promised Abraham that Sarah would bear a son, and he would become a great and mighty nation. God then tells Abraham his plan, and the Lord said, "Verily the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and verily their sin is exceeding grievous. I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me, and if not, I will know." Genesis 18:20-21. As the angels continued to walk toward Sodom, Abraham pleaded to God on behalf of the people of Sodom, where Lot dwelt. God assured him that the city would not be destroyed if 50 righteous people were found there. He continued inquiring, reducing the minimum number for sparing the city to 45, 40, 30, 20, and finally 10. Lot's visitors. And the two angels came to Sodom in the evening. And Lot sat in the gate of Sodom, and Lot saw them, and rose up to meet them. And he fell down on his face to the earth, and he said, "Behold now, my lords, turn aside, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early, and go on your way." And they said, "Nay, but we will abide in the broad place all night." And he urged them greatly. And they turned in unto him, and entered into his house. And he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. Genesis 19:1-3. After supper, that night before bedtime, the men of the city, young and old, gathered around Lot's house, demanding that he bring out his two guests, so that they might know them carnally. Lot went out, closing the door behind him, and begged them to refrain from such wicked deeds, offering them instead his virgin daughters to do as they pleased. The men of Sodom accused Lot of acting as a judge and threatened to do worse to him than they would have done to the men. According to the Bible, the men of Sodom were known for their wickedness and sins against the Lord. Lot, who lived among them, was greatly troubled by their evil deeds. This distress is highlighted in the New Testament, where it's mentioned that Lot was deeply troubled by the blatant wickedness practiced by the inhabitants of Sodom. In the New Testament, the Apostle Peter elaborates on Lot's distress, describing him as a righteous man who was vexed by the wicked's filthy conversation and unlawful deeds. Lot's righteous soul was troubled day by day due to the sinful environment he lived in. The angels drew Lot back into his house and struck the mob with blindness. The angels then said that God had sent them to destroy the place, telling Lot, "Whoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of place." Lot went to the houses of his sons-in-law and warned them to leave the city, but they would not come, imagining that he spoke only in jest. As per Genesis 19:13, Lot lingered in the morning, so the angels forced him and his family out of the city, telling them to flee for the hills and not to look back. Fearful that the hills wouldn't provide enough protection from the impending destruction, Lot asked the angels if he and his family could hide in the safety of a neighboring village. An angel agreed, and the village was henceforth known as Zoar. When God rained fire and brimstone on Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot's wife looked back at the burning cities of the plain and was turned into a pillar of salt in recompense for her folly. Then Genesis 19:23 talks about the sun rising upon the earth when Lot came unto Zoar. Then the Lord caused to rain upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities, and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord. And he looked out toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the land went up as the smoke of a furnace. Instead of both fire and brimstone, Josephus has only lightning as the cause of the fire that destroyed Sodom. God then cast a thunderbolt upon the city and set it on fire with its inhabitants, and laid waste the country with the like burning. In the Jewish war, he likewise says that the city was burnt by lightning. During Lot's time in Sodom, a battle occurred between a group of kings from Mesopotamia and the kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Zoar. This conflict resulted in the defeat of the kings of Sodom's cities, the capture of many inhabitants, including Lot, and the plundering of Sodom's goods. Moreover, during a battle, Lot's goods were captured, and he himself was taken captive. When Abraham learned of this, he gathered a troop of men and launched a night attack, successfully defeating the enemy army. As a result, Lot, along with his household and possessions, was rescued. Notably, it was during this event that Abraham encountered Melchizedek. Lot's return to Sodom. Despite the conflict involving Sodom, Lot remained in the city. His presence in the biblical narrative resurfaces when God decides to destroy the cities of the plain, including Sodom and Gomorrah. Before God's destruction of Sodom, Lot and his family were rescued by two angels sent by the Lord. This rescue demonstrated God's grace, mercy, and commitment to the covenant made with Abraham. The Bible emphasizes that God remembered Abraham and brought Lot out of the city's ruins, sparing him from destruction. How the men of Sodom treated the Lord's angels revealed the depth of their depravity, ultimately leading to divine judgment upon the city. The men of Sodom desired to engage in sexual relations with the angels, who had taken on human form. Lot's response to the situation further demonstrated the harmful effects of living in Sodom. In a misguided attempt to pacify the men of Sodom, Lot offered his own daughters to them. This action highlighted Lot's weakness and the corrupting influence of the city on him. As the men of Sodom persisted in their attempt to seize the angels inside Lot's house, they were struck with a form of blindness. The angels then commanded Lot to evacuate his entire family from the city that was destined for destruction. Despite the imminent danger, Lot initially resisted leaving Sodom. It took the direct intervention of the angels, who took Lot and his family by the hand, to forcibly remove them from the city before its destruction. Warning and disobedience. During the escape from Sodom, Lot's family received a warning not to look back. However, Lot's wife disobeyed this order and glanced back, turning her into a pillar of salt as punishment. After the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot was afraid to stay in Zoar, so he and his two daughters resettled into the hills, living in a cave. The elder daughter, realizing there were no men to marry, suggested to her younger sister that they should sleep with their father to continue their lineage. They gave Lot wine until he was too drunk to know what he was doing. The elder daughter then had sex with Lot without his knowledge. She persuaded her younger sister to do the same the next day. From these incestuous unions, the elder daughter conceived Moab, the father of the Moabites, while the younger daughter conceived Ben-Ami, the father of the Ammonites. So from these incestuous relationships, two sons were born, Moab and Ben-Ami. Moab became the ancestor of the Moabites, while Ben-Ami was the ancestor of the Ammonites. These events illustrate the tragic consequences of Lot's family's actions after fleeing from Sodom. The descendants of Lot, namely the Moabites and Ammonites, played a significant role in causing problems for the Israelites throughout biblical history. Their interactions are marked by conflict and challenges. Lot is infrequently mentioned in the Bible outside of the book of Genesis. In the Old Testament, his name appears only twice, specifically in reference to his descendants as the sons of Lot. This story, often called Lot and His Daughters, has been depicted in many paintings over the centuries. It became one of the subjects in the Power of Women group, cautioning men against succumbing to the temptations of women. The scene typically shows Lot and his daughters eating and drinking in their mountain refuge, with Lot's wife depicted in the background and a burning city in the distance. Along with the accounts of Tamar and Judah and Ruth and Boaz, this is one of 3 instances of sperm stealing in the Bible, where a woman seduces and has sex with her male relative under false pretenses to become pregnant. Each case involves a direct ancestor of King David. Jesus' reference in the New Testament. In the New Testament, Jesus referred to Lot in the Gospel of Luke, emphasizing the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot's deliverance. The passage serves as a warning and draws attention to the suddenness and severity of divine judgment. In Luke's Gospel, Jesus draws a parallel between the ordinary activities of people before the destruction of Sodom and the unsuspecting nature of that day. The narrative underscores the urgency of being prepared for the coming judgment, using Lot's departure from Sodom as a symbolic reference. The passage's message suggests that, like Lot's experience, when the Son of Man is revealed, there will be no time for hesitation. People are urged to be ready, with a focus on spiritual readiness rather than material possessions, as illustrated by the instructions to those in houses or fields. Remember Lot's wife. She serves as a cautionary figure, remembered for her disobedience and subsequent transformation into a pillar of salt. The Apostle Peter also refers to Lot in his second epistle, chapter 2, verses 7 and 8, emphasizing the events surrounding the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot's unknown fate. Following the tragic events in Sodom, including the disturbing relationship with his daughters, the biblical narrative provides no further details about Lot's life. It remains unclear whether he managed to rebuild his life or spent his remaining days in seclusion within the mountain cave. Lot was privileged to learn from his uncle Abraham, known as the father of faith. Despite experiencing divine provision and being recognized as righteous by the Apostle Peter, Lot's life ultimately ends in a sorrowful manner. Unlike Abraham, who was guided by faith, Lot relied on his own judgment, leading him to settle in Sodom, a decision that inflicted deep wounds on him and his family. Lot's story serves as a poignant reminder of the consequences of straying from faith and succumbing to worldly temptations. Lessons learned from Lot's case. So, the story of Lot made us learn some lessons. The first lesson is never to underestimate the power of a sinful environment to sear the conscience. Lot's daughters grew up in a city where immorality was widely accepted, leading to a searing of their consciences. Surrounded by such influences, their drastic actions seemed logical to them. This serves as a warning about the impact of sinful environments on our moral compass. The second lesson is to always choose faith. Fear God, not your circumstances. Despite having some knowledge of God, Lot and his daughters succumbed to fear rather than trusting in God's protection. Faith waits on God, while fear leads to decisions based on human abilities, often resulting in further suffering. A proper fear and respect for God guide us toward what is right and good. The third lesson is to choose humility, even when you've burned your bridges. Lot's failure to seek help from Abraham after being rescued from captivity may have been due to pride. Humility leads to wisdom and honor, while pride brings dishonor and downfall. Lastly, God's sovereignty and grace can bring good from our failures. Despite the dire circumstances and the sinful choices made by Lot and his daughters, God brought good from their failures. The descendants of Moab and Ammon, born from incestuous relationships, played significant roles in biblical history, ultimately leading to the lineage of Jesus Christ. This serves as a reminder of God's sovereignty and his ability to bring good out of even the most difficult situations. So, what do you think of the man Lot in the Bible and his importance? Comment below and subscribe for more.